How are we doing today? Hi there. Just going to give a few minutes for everybody to check in. My name is Chris, and I am an autoimmune coach, and I'm happy to meet you all. We've got a few people coming in. Feel free to type in the comments where you're from. I see New York, New York, New Jersey. Let's see who else. Who else is here? Good to see everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're here at the Build Your Own Anti-Inflammatory Lifestyle Plan class using the 4 pillars of autoimmune healing. Welcome, welcome. We've got, looks like we have Sarah, Lindsay, Carla, Anita, Sojourn. Where are you all from? I know we've got New York and New Jersey represented here. Florida. All right. Oh, Minnesota. Cool. All right. Where's the weather at? Where's the weather like where you're at? All right. Yeah. All right, we're gonna get started in just a few moments, but who's excited about today's topic? Going to be meeting for about an hour and a half or so today. What do you hope to learn? Why are you here today? All right. Good, good. Yeah, no, those autoimmune system symptoms, you know, I mean, some of us have spent years trying to just get our lives back, right? What's the most stressful thing for you? Yeah, yeah. That doctors, the medical system, navigating the medical system, feeling heard. Oh, yeah, yeah, feeling believed. Can you say more about that? Oh, yeah. Yeah, because in many ways, autoimmune disease is, falls into that category of the silent disease. We might look like we're fine, especially if we have lived with it for a long time, right? And depending on the condition, we could have varying degrees of pain or, um, discomfort or brain fog or whatever the case. Um, and the the reason and the extent of our discomfort is not always readily visible to people. And especially if we've had it for a long time, we're good at compensating, we're good at pushing through the pain, we're good, maybe our pain tolerance has increased over time, and so we live with this chronic level of fatigue or pain, and so our, the limit to what we can endure, we hit that limit um, quicker because we're already up this high, right? It doesn't take much more. Um, yeah, frustrating. Yeah. What do you hope to get out of this class? Who's excited? Who's excited to learn some solutions, to take some power back? Yeah. All right. Me too. Well, okay, we're going to get started here. Um, Again, so glad that you're here. My name is Chris, and I am so glad that you are here today. Um, And I really want to start off by sharing with you my story of how I got here because I'm an autoimmune warrior and thriver. And I would just love to tell you my story. And I'm going to be reading this in part because there's a way to tell it, and I don't want to leave out anything important. I want to be sure that I get everything in like all of the different parts of this in order so that I can say the most important thing um, for you to hear. So first, I want to tell you. So if I look like I'm reading, that's because I am referring to my notes. First, I want to tell you how I accidentally, on purpose, began to heal myself and what brings me to this work that I do today. I was diagnosed with my first autoimmune disease when I was 6 or 7 years old. Um, it was psoriasis, resulting in these scaly, itchy patches all over my body and my scalp and my skin. Um, and I don't know that my dermatologist at the time used the term autoimmune disease. If he did, I certainly don't remember, but I do know that no dermatologist that I saw later on ever used that term. I learned it later on my own. But I suffered with those symptoms well into my adulthood, despite years of tar shampoo and all kinds of oil treatments. Um, and still those symptoms persisted. When I was 11, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. After my first child was born, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease and later IBS. I remember asking my endocrinologist after the Hashimoto's diagnosis why I was collecting this array of autoimmune diseases. All she could tell me was that it was a syndrome, and there's nothing I had done to cause it and nothing I can do about it. She wasn't the first one to tell me that. Another doctor told me that had simply been handed a bad set of genes, as one gets dealt a bad set of cards, bad hand of cards. I wasn't happy with either of those explanations. That line, I'm not happy with that explanation, or I'm not happy with that plan, has become the mantra, spurring me to greater depths of healing, greater depths of seeking in my own journey of research and healing. I should also mention that I didn't just have autoimmune diseases. I'm also a two-time cancer survivor. It's said that cancer and autoimmune disease are two sides of the same coin. Both involved a confused, overactive, or insufficient immune system. It has taken me a lifetime of experience, many thousands of hours, and many thousands of dollars to gain the experience and the information that I will be sharing with you tonight. And since time is precious, worth more than money, I will also be saving you time, so you don't have to spend 65 years figuring it all out. I just turned 66, actually. Stories about people who have reduced or even eliminated their autoimmune symptoms. In some case, stories abound of people who have reduced or even eliminated their autoimmune symptoms. In some cases, depending on what kind of disease they had, they've even achieved complete remission. Today, I have no evidence of psoriasis. My diabetes is in excellent control. I have health and I have energy, and I am cancer-free. It is my greatest desire to use what I have learned to help others on their journey through life. My search for answers and my journey designing an anti-inflammatory lifestyle that works is combined with degrees in psychology, social work, theology, and coursework to become a trauma-informed life coach and a functional nutrition counselor. I have a total of over 45 years working as a school psychologist, social worker, pastor, and most recently, a life coach with a special interest in the connection between stress, nutrition, and autoimmune disease. Which brings us to tonight. Is it okay if I share with you some of what I have learned? And how about if I share it for free? Plus, later on, I'll share with you about my coaching program where we develop and implement your anti-inflammatory lifestyle plan that you'll work out tonight so that you can experience the kind of wraparound support needed for health transformation you desire. You'll get the benefit of my tonight, you'll get the benefit of my $200,000 worth of education plus 60 years of life experience. But I promise that your cost will be minuscule in comparison. And tonight's offering is for free. How does that sound? Type yes in the comments if you like that deal. All right. So I was talking with when I mentioned before that stories abound of people who have uh, of people who have overcome, turned around their autoimmune disease uh, on their own with minimal other interventions. And I want to share with you a couple of those stories. First of all, um, this is a book by Palmer Capola, and she completely threw her muscular sclerosis into remission through the methods, the techniques, the protocol that I will be sharing tonight. So that's a great resource. Her story is very inspiring. And interestingly, I was talking with someone that I met who had noticed a little video that I had put online, and her name is Anita, and she sought me out and arranged a call with me because she was really looking for some pieces to fall into place for her. She had been diagnosed also with autoimmune disease when she was much younger. And in her college days, she 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 began just eating healthier. She ate more plant food diets and plant more of a plant-based diet, and she kind of ditched the gluten for a while and that kind of thing. And her all of her symptoms just went away. She didn't adopt those that way of eating for particularly for her symptoms. She was just doing it because it just seemed like a healthier way to go, and she wanted to be as healthy as she could. She wasn't necessarily aiming to cure anything. She also had a network of friends who were eating in a similar way. So in a sense, she was finding community and joining in community. What happened was all of her symptoms went away. She became healthier in all areas of her life. And she had always kind of wondered if there was a connection between that change and the disappearance of her symptoms. When she heard my story and read my story, she was intrigued. So we had this amazing conversation about health and some of the things that I was able to share with her helped these pieces fall into place. It was like her life was finally clicking together, her healing was clicking together, and she knew what she wanted to do going forward. That's why I love this kind of work. is because I love it when people can connect the dots in their health and can find some things that really make a difference, that really help them feel better. So again, thank you if you're just joining us. Thank you for being here. I'm so glad that you're here. There will be a replay that I will send out later. So if you missed the beginning and if you missed my story of how I came to be interested in autoimmune disease and helping other people overcome the challenges with autoimmune disease, you can watch the replay and catch up. I also want to mention that as a bonus for being here tonight, you will have the opportunity to schedule a call with me, and I'll put the link in the chat for you. You'll have a chance to schedule a free call with me. And in that call, we'll be able to go over the work you've done tonight on the anti-inflammatory lifestyle plan that you have devised for yourself, designed for yourself. And with that, um, we can talk about ways to implement that, some challenges you might experience, and what kind of support you might like to set up for yourself in order to in your life or otherwise in order to ensure your success. Because as you will hear me say time and again, information is amazing. Information can, as they say, right, the more we know, the better we can do, right? If we know more, we can do better. But information will only take us so far. True transformation happens with a combination of information and um, support. When we have those two together, that's the magic combination that brings about uh, true transformation in our lives. So that's the attendance bonus is you'll get a glimpse of that support that will uh, help you bring to life and really manifest the changes that you're looking for. So I mentioned anti-inflammatory lifestyle plan. First of all, I want to just talk a little bit about um, autoimmune disease. All right, what in the world is autoimmune disease? It's not unusual for someone to get diagnosed with something. You remember when I said in my story that I was diagnosed with psoriasis, but I had no idea. I was well into my adulthood. I was probably 40 something before I learned that. And here what I said, I was 6 or 7 when I was diagnosed with psoriasis, and then I started to collect, all of these other health conditions that were autoimmune disease. I had no idea that psoriasis was the first one until I stumbled on that information by accident when I was well into my adulthood. So it is not unusual for someone to be diagnosed with something like, I don't know, like Hashimoto's or RA or that kind of thing. Um, and not not register that, not even know that it's an autoimmune disease. Why is it important to know that it's an autoimmune disease? Well, partly because there's an autoimmune disease. It represents something. It means that something big has changed in our bodies. What it really means is that there's been something going on usually for a long time, and then something happened that triggered it to become an acute problem, which then is identified or diagnosed as an autoimmune disease. many times people have symptoms that are not yet diagnosed because autoimmune disease is complex. Um, Symptoms are not always the same for every person. Blood tests are still, we're really still learning a lot about, how things show up in our blood work, and new tests are being developed to refine diagnoses and things like that. So it's not unusual for someone to see six or seven doctors before and over a span of many years before their symptoms actually get diagnosed. Um, and but one of the things, so an autoimmune disease, what is an autoimmune disease? An autoimmune disease is when the body's immune system gets confused and it begins to attack the body. Okay, so our immune system is attacking the very system that it's supposed to protect. Um, so it's a disorder or dysfunction of the immune system. It doesn't on its own, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have a weak immune system. And it just means that your immune system is confused. Um, so what causes autoimmune disease? There is an element, there can be an element in some cases, there is an element of genetics. But just because you have a gene for something or genetic predisposition for something, it doesn't automatically mean you're going to get it, right? Um, so, not everyone that has a gene for type 2 diabetes, is going to develop type 2 diabetes. Um, the other factors that make that genetic expression turn on like a light switch are, come from outside of the genes. It's what we call epigenetics. It's everything else around outside of the genes surrounding in the surrounding area. Sometimes we call that the terrain. So, so when we are talking about autoimmune disease, things that cause our immune system to get confused, things that cause this switch to go off are from our environment. That can be the toxins in the environment, the food and the nutrition that we consume, the amount of stress. I'm going to talk more about each one of these, okay? But the kinds of stress and the amount of that stress that we are that we are under, and so those are really the three. Those are the three. Um, And then the four pillars are basically how we're going to address it. But those are the three causes, okay? The toxins, the nutrition, and the stress element. So, and then and all of those things are assaults on the body. And if you think about when your body is injured, okay, what happens when you sprain your ankle? What happens to your ankle? Type in the comments what happens when you sprain your ankle? Right, it swells. Okay, that's usually the first thing. And swelling is called what? Inflammation, exactly. That swelling is called inflammation. Well, inflammation shows up in other ways as well. It shows up inside of our body. Inflammation is not a bad thing. Inflammation is a protective response to injury. Our body is sending extra resources to that area. And so that's a good thing. The problem is when it is sustained and it never comes down, that inhibits the healing, which is why, after let's say you sprain your ankle and you go home, what do? You want to put ice or heat on um, that injury, and you want to try to reduce the inflammation, and then the healing can occur. And the sign of it being better is when the inflammation is gone and the bruising is gone, and you can walk without pain. Right? That's how it's supposed to work. When inflammation is so if internally, if we are experiencing injury from toxins, from foods that are not made for the human body's health, and stress, those produce an injury of sorts. And so we're under this bombardment, okay? And then because of all of those things, combined with the genetics, maybe that switch gets turned on. Maybe there might be a trigger. Um, then there's even more inflammation, and that inflammation is sustained. And then there's a trigger, something that happens. Maybe it's an illness, or maybe it's a surgery, or maybe it's a pregnancy. Um, it's very common for an autoimmune illness to suddenly come into existence. It was likely underlying, but all of a sudden it rears its head and becomes identified at the point of some other event. So, just for example, um, I was diagnosed at age 11 with diabetes. That's a time that was adolescence. My body was changing, hormonal changes, that kind of thing. That's not an unusual time for a child to be diagnosed with an illness like that. Um, Pregnancy is another um, time when a woman might be diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. Some people get diagnosed, after the death of a spouse, or around the time of surgery. The body is under stress already. And this is just one more thing. It's like kind of like the last straw on the overload of things. And the autoimmune disease comes into play, right? And then what happens is that the disease itself causes inflammation, because the immune system is confused, and so it starts attacking, and that's how it gets identified, right? Maybe your joints are just like so sore and so swollen, and you're in agony all the time, and you get diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis because the your immune system is attacking your joints and other things in your body, because rheumatoid arthritis is more of it's really a systemic sort of disease. And so you have, in a sense, this civil war going on inside of you, causing more inflammation, and yet you still have the diet you were eating, the toxins that were already there in your environment, the stress, and then you got more stress. And you've got, the stress of trying to find out what's going on, of getting a serious diagnosis, of navigating a complex medical system, of waiting for test results, of, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like a never-ending cycle. Okay. Um, if you're if you're if you're thinking to yourself, wow, that's a lot, this is a moment where I want you to to take a deep breath. Type in the comments if this is like, oh my gosh, I never looked at it this way. Now I'm understanding more than I did before. Yeah, 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 exactly, exactly. So, um, so if and I hope this helps you to give yourself grace because if you've been feeling exhausted, if you've been feeling frustrated, if you don't understand why all this stuff is going on, well, I hope understanding a little bit more about what's going on inside of your body can help. Um, and then I'm not going to leave you in this place. We're going to move into some solutions because all of this can really end up feeling very disempowering for people. And so, one of the things that I do with my clients is I work on mindset that enables us to be empowered and to feel empowered and to do the things that we can do and to problem solve and that kind of thing. Navigate the complexities of medical care and life with an autoimmune disease, all of this stuff, stress management and so forth. All of this helps and makes the burden so much easier for autoimmune warriors like yourself and like myself. So, we've got this inflammation going on. And so even if you are not yet diagnosed, is there anyone here who's waiting for test results or you're waiting to get tests? You have symptoms for the first time or you have new symptoms and you're waiting, yeah, okay, surgeons, yeah, yep, yeah, surgeons, yep, yep. Yeah, yeah. So that's such a common frustration is, you know, so many times we think that we have to wait until we get the diagnosis before we do anything. That is, couldn't be farther from the truth. That is, and that's good news, right? You don't have to sit back and wait before you can take some action. So the first thing that we want to do is address the inflammation. Now, if you were to go into Google and type um, uh, natural approach to reducing autoimmune disease symptoms, 100% of the time, you are going to find the words anti-inflammatory. It might be anti-inflammatory diet, might be anti-inflammatory lifestyle plan or protocol. It might be anti-inflammatory protocol diet, which is an official, like a trademark name, AIP diet, which is an elimination diet that you go on for a short time in order to figure out what's causing inflammation for you. That kind of thing. So, but the key point here is that um, the first thing you can do for yourself no matter what. And this works not just for autoimmune disease, but for many other maladies that we humans encounter is being, you know, is reducing the inflammation in our bodies can it will allow our bodies to heal and to garner the strength to begin to heal itself. I'm not advocating that we stop, taking the medications if we're working with a doctor and we're taking medications, but but the anti-inflammatory lifestyle plan works with any other treatments that you are doing, and it has got to be the first step. So something that doctors don't usually say because it's just not their lane. And so they don't usually tell you all of this. Um, but uh, but it is absolutely scientifically proven, well documented that doing the things to reduce the inflammation in our bodies through reducing the toxic overload, uh, nutrition, wonderful nutrition, and stress reduction will go a long way in getting us to that place of thriving that we long for as autoimmune warriors. Type thrive in the comments if you want to thrive. Yay. All right, hooray for thrive. Okay. So here are the areas of the four pillars of autoimmune recovery, of relieving the symptoms, and many times even throwing that autoimmune disease into remission. And just to be clear, there are some autoimmune diseases that, at least yet, we've not been able to throw into remission, although we can control them a lot better. Type 1 diabetes is one of those things because just and I'm one of those, right? Um, my immune system, put an end to my body's ability to produce insulin. And um, there's not been an instance where someone has been cured of that by this kind of a diet. But I can do a whole lot but the anti-inflammatory protocol goes a long way in helping to stabilize everything going on in my body. And when the inflammation is stabilized, then the blood sugars stabilize a lot better. Okay, so we are going to look at um, reducing toxins. This is all has to do with reducing inflammation. So reducing toxins, um, uh, nourishing our bodies with great healing foods. And that we're going to talk about gut repair as well. Um, and we're going to talk about, what was the third one? We're going to talk about movement. All right. And we're going to talk about taming the stress monster. All right. So the first one is reducing toxins. Ingesting toxins, breathing in toxins, toxins on our skin. Our skin's our largest organ and it's very porous. The things that we put on our skin, things we wash our hair with, um, drinking, what we drink, what we eat, what we breathe. All of those things can introduce toxins into our bodies. So I invite you to, as part of your plan, to take a look at all of your products and everything that you ingest, and just kind of like do an audit. Before we go any further, I just want to take a moment and just give you I want to just take a quick little break. Let's just give ourselves like 3 minutes and maybe just stand up and stretch. If you, I want to first and foremost give you a chance to grab a piece of paper and a pencil. If you didn't come, I forgot to mention this before, if you didn't come with anything to write with, go grab something now, because this is where you're going to really want to be taking notes if you haven't been doing that yet. Because this is where we're going to start working on that anti-inflammatory lifestyle plan. All right, so if you want to grab a drink, stretch your legs, run and get a pad and a paper, a pen and a pen, something to write with. Um, Come on back here, and we are going to continue. I will be right here. If you want to chat or anything like that, type in the chat. We can converse. But let's go 3 minutes. All right. Those of you who are still here, type in the comments some of your aha moments. What are you learning so far? What's new? What's something you haven't heard yet that you heard for the first time today? Oh, cool. Yep. You never thought about stress being, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a big one. Yeah. I had talked about my friend Anita earlier, and that was her big takeaway from our conversation. Um, that the one piece that fell into place for her was that she had grown up in a stressful had gone through some stressful times as a child. Um, and she was able to kind of connect the dots with the development of an illness that she had. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. It's really hard to avoid the toxins in our environment. Yeah. But there are some things that we can do to at least minimize what we're exposed to. Yeah. Yeah. So this is all about, recognizing the reality of things and then also being able um to yeah, assess what we can control and what we can't. Um, and again, none of this is about perfection. It's about progress. It's about you know, just putting aside the fear and that feeling of helplessness that we sometimes get and rising up to meet the challenges. Yeah. All right, we're gonna get started in just a second. So, all right, let me know that you're here. Everybody here, type here if you're back in. All right, everybody back? All right, we're about ready to get started again. Okay, so um, so you can here are the four pillars that we are going to work on. All right, the four pillars are um, reducing toxic overload. Number two is create a healing menu that you love. Number three is tame the stress monster. Number four is move. Harness the power of movement. All right. Okay. So, reducing toxin overload. Here we go. Examples. Type in the comments. Where do you see where do you find toxins? Every place, yeah. Right, right. Pretty could be every place, right? Okay. So when I first became interested in eating healthy really was when I developed diabetes as a kid. And it wasn't so much it was partly a result of needing to limit other things that I ate. And I always loved vegetables anyway, so like if I was hungry, but it wasn't mealtime, I could often eat raw vegetables pretty freely. So I became an avid vegetable lover. And great, that's wonderful, right? You can't imagine anything healthier than that, except that organic vegetables weren't really all that much a thing then. It wasn't something that I wasn't even aware. As at that age in my life, I wasn't aware of anything having to do with organic. And so what I was doing, unbeknownst to me, right? And this is the thing, like when we know better, we do better. But if we don't know, then we can't change it. Right? So, unbeknownst to me, I'm, ingesting lots of toxins through the vegetables that I was eating. We do this all the time, even still today. It's more difficult to find vegetables that are grown without pesticides, at least, if not organically. And it's more expensive. I've always had this, not always, but for the last probably 20 years, I've had this idea in my head that we could change, um, that we could change how people view food if we would just label things differently. I was in the grocery store many years ago, and I was choosing peaches. I walked in the grocery store, and the as I walked in, there was a display of peaches. It was obviously peach season, right? And there were, peaches, and then there were organic peaches. The organic peaches were on sale. The organic peaches were the same price as the regular peaches. Man, I was so excited. I walk up, there's a woman filling her bag with the regular peaches, and I'm like, I grab a bag and I'm like, look at this, the organic peaches, they're the same price and they're organic. The woman looks at me and she goes, oh, my family would never eat that stuff. So crazy, right? Like, so there is still, and that was okay, that was probably a decade ago, but there's still this perception in some people's minds that organic is something weird, or that organic is for like those hippie kind of people, those health food nuts, or that organic is what the rich people eat. No, it's not. I'm not rich, I'm just a regular person, but I know better. And so I do better, and I'm willing to spend the extra when I can get organic. Back to the labeling. I have often thought, wouldn't it be something if instead of labeling organic things or healthy things as something different. If we would put a skull and crossbones symbol on every food item that is treated with pesticides, that is heavily processed, you know, that has a high concentration of processed sugars, high fructose corn syrup, all of that stuff. If we could put a skull and crossbones, simply that, on all of those other things, and then just have, the organic, whole food, simple ingredient, healthy items, just with no special labeling, just as they are. Putting out my vision there for the future. Yeah. The point is, though, that toxins are in our world and there's not a lot we can do about it, but there is something you can do about it for yourself. So, for reducing toxins, here's what you're going to do. Make sure that you have filtered water, that you're drinking filtered water. If you can get a filter that is for your whole house, even better. Then you're washing in filtered water and so forth. And make sure that you get a high quality filter, and change that filter. So at least the water that you're drinking, um, the water that you are cooking in is free of toxic chemicals and chlorine and so forth. Um, if you're on public water system, yeah, it's treated, it's filtered, it's treated, but it's not completely filtered and treated, and you may still have quite a bit of chlorine, that you're ingesting because that's part of the cleansing, um, purification process that they use. Um, so other things to detoxify, if you add lemon to your water, to whatever drink, you're having your tea, that kind of thing. That will help to detoxify your body. Um, when the air quality is bad, you can wear a mask. Um, be sure that, if there's construction going on, that, around you, that you're wearing a mask so you're not breathing in so much. Watch out for those microplastics. Don't drink bottled water. Bottled water is full of microplastics. And you don't even know, like, but we read warnings about, um, the plastic bottles breaking down in heat. But before we purchase those bottles of water, we don't know what kind of temperature, uh, ranges they've been in, right? We don't know if they've been sitting in a hot vehicle for a week before they were transported to the store, or, an air conditioned, warehouse, that kind of thing. We just don't know. I recently heard a study that said, that the average brain these days has the equivalent of a plastic teaspoon full of microplastics in it. So we need to do what we can to detoxify ourselves. Detoxification also, it has to do with the whole of our gut. And we'll talk about, gut motility, in a little bit, but, when our gut is working properly and we're eliminating properly, then that also reduces the toxic overload. So reducing toxins is the first thing that you're going to want to work on. The next thing, and these aren't necessarily in like a chronological order, you can do, I'm just giving you each one, as a separate category, but some of these do overlap, and you can work on these simultaneously. The second pillar is nutrition. Oh, and by the way, I want to relate each of these to inflammation. So when toxins are introduced into our bodies, it's a foreign substance. It's a substance that's not good for us. What will be our body's natural response? Type inflammation. Inflammation in the chat. Yep, exactly. Okay. Yep. So that increases inflammation. When we reduce the toxin load, what are we going to be doing? We're going to be reducing the inflammation. Everybody understand? Okay, got it? All right. So, next one is nutrition and the kinds of foods. So there are inflammatory foods and there are anti-inflammatory foods. So inflammatory foods include anything that we might be allergic to, for one thing, and that can be different, that will be different for different people. All right. So, you know, someone, might eat peanuts and have a major, allergic reaction to it and need medical treatment. Someone else, like myself, can eat peanuts or peanut butter and I'll have no reaction at all. So for them, they had a major inflammatory, life-threatening response. I did not have a response. Allergies are something to look at. Oftentimes, if you see a holistic doctor or a naturopath, someone like that, they will do allergy testing for you. Your own doctor, your own primary care, your own rheumatologist, whatever might actually do some basic food testing for you, so you can check on some of those common allergens. Um, you can also become aware of how your body is responding as you eat certain things. If you feel a certain way after eating something, you know, strawberries, for example, maybe you know, every time you have strawberries, you start getting itchy, you know, maybe you've never connected the dots. Maybe you have a slight allergy to strawberries, and that's why. So, and itchiness is that's an inflammatory response. Okay, so sometimes allergies will cause inflammation. There are some very common inflammatory foods. Gluten is a huge one. I would advise that anyone with autoimmune disease um, look for alternatives. You don't need wheat or any other grain with gluten in order to have a, a full, rich, wonderful array of things to eat. Most things do not have gluten, so with just a little mental shift and some different buying patterns, you can move away from ingesting gluten. But gluten produces an inflammatory response. Um, so those are two things. Dairy, sometimes for some people, um, creates inflammation. Um, Red meat, definitely. So those are things that you want to stay away from. Anti-inflammatory foods are abundant. Um, Eat plants, all right? Eat plants. Plants are the best thing that we can eat. We are actually like physiologically designed to eat plants more than meat. Humans have the ability, which makes us, it makes us, it gives us a survival edge, a survival advantage because we are able to eat meat. Um, but we're designed to eat more vegetables, our facial structure, our teeth, our jaw structure, our gut, how our gut is designed. That's all um, more appropriate to ingesting and digesting and processing and absorbing nutrients from plants. So, so definitely the food items. And when you're designing, I entitle this part of the protocol designing your designing your healing menu that you love, because there are more foods you can eat on this protocol than foods you can't eat. Okay. The other thing you're going to want to get rid of, is foods that are high in sugar, particularly processed sugar. Some sugars that are okay in moderation will be coconut sugar. Agave is more processed, but you can get away with using some agave. Date syrup is fine. Maple syrup is fine. Not Aunt Jemima's maple syrup, or that kind of, not the table, pancake syrup, but real real maple syrup. Honey is fine. All those are natural sweeteners. You can get coconut sugar or date sugar in a granulated form. Those are all fine to use. When you can, sweeten with fruit. You can buy plain yogurt or plain plant-based yogurt, and mash up a ripe banana. Mix that in with yogurt, and it's delicious. It tastes plenty sweet enough. You don't need to add anything else. So those are just some ideas for reducing the sugar, reducing the gluten, and when you reduce those things, and choosing protein sources that are plant-based, or at least fish, rather than beef. Those will help to reduce the inflammation, the inflammatory qualities of your diet. Um, all right. The other is, let me see, moving on. That was the food. And then we're going to move on to the stress reduction, taming that stress monster. Okay, well, I talked about stress a few minutes ago. The idea that uh, that that you know, that stress can cause or trigger both of those things. It can both cause the development or help to uh, add to the conditions in which autoimmune disease can happen. Can also trigger the onset of an autoimmune disease, or the onset of a flare-up. And the reason for that is because of something called cortisol. How many of you have ever heard of cortisol? All right, yep. Yeah. How many of you know what cortisol is? Okay, cortisol is the stress hormone, and it sometimes we hear it used in a negative way. Cortisol is damaging to us, but it's damaging to us when it's high at a consistent level in our bodies. When it is high, um, when our cortisol level is high in response to an imminent threat, current threat, it is life-changing. It is life-saving, right? We need cortisol to escape the bear. We need cortisol and adrenaline to lift the car. We've heard stories of a mom who lifted a car off of her toddler. I mean, it's that. Um, you know, that's what cortisol is for. Cortisol is not meant to stay in our bodies the whole time. All right. It's like it would be as if cortisol would be as if you had a fire in your house, and the firemen came and turned on the fire hose to put the fire out. Okay. And then the fire's out, and they turn off the fire hose and they go home. Okay. That's how it's supposed to work. But what if the fire broke out, the firemen came, they turn on the fire hose, They put out the fire, but they kept the fire hose going. They never turned it off. All right. What would happen? Okay, that's like, when our bodies are what happens is our bodies these days often get um that cortisol level is high all of the time, and it's as if the fire hose is constantly blasting inside, right? It never gets turned off, now it's creating more damage um for no reason at all. So lots of us walk around with a very high cortisol level, even though there's no imminent danger. Or that cortisol level will get triggered to the highest level because we have so much, we're already this high with the stress, and then everything else brings it up over the top. For people who have had traumatic childhoods, it's not unusual. It's actually very typical to develop an autoimmune disease. Um, because and it's because of cortisol. Cortisol, among other things, but it's a variety of things, but just for one thing, that high degree of cortisol eats away at our gut lining. Um, which then sets us up, right, for the development of an autoimmune disease. Um, and so resolving trauma and learning good stress reduction techniques, good for everybody, especially good for people who have a history of trauma, whether it's from childhood or whether it's something that happened in your adulthood, that is causing you stress, that caused you stress, that, remnants may still be operative in your body. It's really, really important. And as you deal with the stresses of life with an autoimmune disorder, we have even more reasons for us to be stressed. So it's even more important that we work on find ways to reduce the stress overload. So I want you to, on your paper, manage the stress monster. Um, I want you to just list three things that you can do to reduce stress. I'm going to give you a couple of ideas now. There's some things. If there's something that works especially well for you, um, you can also type it in the comments so others maybe want to try it too. But for me, I like to breathe. You can do this with me. Take a nice deep breath. You can do patterned breathing, picture a rectangle. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Let it out. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3. And do that a few times. You can stand at a window, look around you, or step outside, feel your feet on the ground. Note what you feel, what you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste. And that can help calm you or bring you into the present. If your present is what is causing the stress, you can do the opposite thing and take yourself to a place that is calming. Create a place. If you don't have a place in your head, for me, it's the ocean. If you don't have a place in your head, you can create a place. Maybe a little tree house inside of you, or, create your ideal tropical island where you're by yourself, surrounded by, that kind of thing. So create your favorite place to go to. Another thing that I really love to do, so I'll just tell you my third thing, is our vagus nerve. So when we're calming our nervous system, our vagus nerve has a big part of that. And so Um, and so so just and our vagus nerve comes the from our brain stem around this way. It actually splits off and goes this way. Vagus means wandering, and so it's this wandering nerve goes all the way down to our gut. So our gut and our brain is connected. If you've ever heard of the gut-brain axis, that's what it's referring to. So if you massage your vagus nerve behind the back of your ears, there's that bone behind the back of the occipital bone. Your vagus nerve travels right behind that. It can be really relaxing for me, super relaxing. I love to do it with essential oils. So you also get the smell. Um, you get the smell of the essential oil. Um, and behind the ears is our bodies are very receptive to the oil um, uh, behind our ears. And so, you've got the feel of the oil, the actual properties of the oil entering your body, and the scent. And when you cross your arms, it almost tricks your body into feeling like you're getting a hug. It's like when you give yourself a self hug like that, you actually almost feel like you're being hugged by on a different level or by someone. Um, so those are just some tips for stress reduction when you're feeling stressed. And you also might want to practice noting when you feel stressed. I don't know. Type in the comments or type in the chat if you resonate with this, but I can be very stressed and not show it and not even truly realize that I am stressed. So I don't even realize how stressed I am until I take a deep breath and I do something like this and I'm like and the stress goes down, and that's when I realize that my stress level was up here or up here. I was plowing through doing what I always do, but I needed to bring that stress level down. All right. So, all right. Uh, so that's one of the things I love to do is work with people on stress. Also, also, um, you know, mindset. And this goes along with the idea of stress, um, is that you know, being able to reframe things, reframe the challenges into something that's a springboard for something better, you know. Just for example, I get, when I'm super frustrated about navigating just the medical system, you know, I almost always also learn something new though. And when I learn something new, what can I do? Oh, I can incorporate that into my practice of helping others. So, every learning experience, every challenge that you overcome can be an opportunity to add to your repertoire for the future and for things that you can help others with. So that's taming the stress monster, or at least part of it. And then the last one is movement, because one of the things that happens is that when we're not feeling good, we will probably move less. We'll start moving less. Um, so how does movement reduce inflammation? Well, So when we stop moving, our inflammation it rises. You might notice it. One way you might notice it is, have you ever taken like a train ride or sat at a meeting for a long time and at the end of the day your ankles are swollen? Well, it's because you haven't been able to move, right? And so, just the your body fluids rather than moving around are just gonna, gravity's gonna pull it down to your ankles. It's just kind of like one manifestation of that lack of circulation. So when we can move, a few different things happen. It's more than just circulation, but we're going to start there with circulation of blood. So when we move, our blood circulates, and it brings toxins and it brings, sorry, it brings nutrients and brings toxins if we got toxins in our body too, but it primarily brings nutrients and oxygen to the farthest reaches of our body, right? It's great for our brain, it's great for our fingers and toes and everything in between. So because it circulates the blood, and which circulates the nutrients, which circulates the oxygen. Um, and that all helps to reduce inflammation. It also um, gets the lymph system moving. Um, and the lymph system is responsible for primarily for moving out the toxins. And so when our lymph system is stalled and stagnant, our body's not able to move out the toxins efficiently. And so when we can move, we get our lymph system moving, which then moves out the toxins. And that, like I said, some of these areas overlap. We're connecting back into reducing that toxic overload. Right. So that's the lymph system. And then the third way that movement helps us with inflammation is by getting the digestion going. We can digest our food better when we digest our food better and more efficiently, rather than it just kind of like staying stalled. Then that reduces inflammation. So you see how all that is connected, right? Okay. So definitely, we want to get that movement. Not to mention the fact that if we move, then we're also keeping our bones and our muscles strong. Okay. All right. So what obstacles do we sometimes experience when we are trying to put a new lifestyle into place? Because now I hope that you can see you've got the beginnings of an anti-inflammatory lifestyle before you, right? Um, and this is cool because with this framework, you can continue to add to it. You can continue to come up with ideas. You can begin to get a little bit more in tune with your body. And I also always recommend that people kind of have a chart. You could just create your own little chart and write down like what are you eating, how much exercise, when did you exercise, or what kind of exercise was it, um what happened in your life, was there a lot of stress, that kind of thing. And then that's kind of like here, and then you've got over here, you can just like write down on any particular day any symptoms that you have, and you might be able to, lots of times you can connect the dots. Okay. um and when you connect the dots, then you know more, right? And you can begin to see progress. You can also pinpoint uh, things that you can maybe change. Like if you eat something, you know, that was different, or you'd been off of gluten for, a month, and then you go on vacation and you totally go off the gluten-free diet and you start eating gluten again, and then, halfway through your vacation you start getting stiff, and RA pain flares up, and you're like, oh, and it gives you information, right? Um, so when you can record it, then you can do that with a little more accuracy, and really make use of the information. Because when our bodies are reacting, when we're having a flare up, when we're having new symptoms, whenever, it's really a way that our body gives us information. Our body is always speaking to us. It's just we've become disconnected and we don't listen a lot of times. So you really want to be able to listen um, to your body. Um, all right. So some of the obstacles that we often find have to do with you know, um, how it is in social situations. Maybe you go to a party, or, and you're like, what do you do, right? And you go to dinner with your family and all of the, and it's a holiday and everything is, the way that you ate in the past, but don't eat that way anymore. That's one of those challenges that people often come across, or maybe it's just uncomfortable to have to say, no, thank you. I don't eat that cake anymore. Um, or I remember this dear woman that I knew. She had been working so hard. She had type 2 diabetes. She had been working so hard to lose weight and to not eat sugar. And she'd been doing a good job. Her husband had been sick. She'd been taking care of her husband. She still did, was trying her best to take care of herself, doing a really great job. Didn't have any sweets in the house. Um, and she was also trying to help her husband get better. And so anyway, time went by, her husband passed away, and she I stopped over to visit her, and I brought her some flowers for her table. And she she said, I just want to show you something. I asked her how she was feeling and so forth. She goes, I just want to show you something. And she leads me over to her refrigerator. She opens up her refrigerator. I kid you not, there were 7 platters of cookies. She's one woman, she's an elderly woman, and all of her friends brought her platters of cookies. Not only was she just one person, but she was diabetic, you know, and everyone knew that. And so, you know, we 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 have a culture that views food as that views certain kinds of foods, usually sweet foods, as a token of care and of love and of reward, when it's really bad for you. I mean, how ironic is it that, we want to give our kids Skittles as a reward for doing something good, or a reward for behaving, right? You know, we're giving them something that is really, really bad for them. But that's just an example of how our society is built. And so when we're struggling with these things, it's not our fault. This is not that you don't have willpower. It's not that you have a lack of motivation. It's not that you've done this to yourself. I mean, all of that stuff. No, it's the world we're living in, right? So, but it's up to us to change that. We start by changing it for ourselves. And once you start establishing community, building community around it, you find that you're not alone, that there are a lot of us that are trying to change this. So, um, also, um, I think one of the other obstacles that we find out there is that there are a lot of quick fixes that are being offered. The advertisers would have us believe that, you know, one product, their product, or that one certain kind of treatment that one protocol, one thing, one move will change, will heal the autoimmune condition or whatever condition that we have. And it's just simply not true. It's a lifestyle of things in this world. It's the way the world is. And so we have to address it from a holistic approach because we're more than just one thing, right? I mean, we're body, mind, and spirit. And so, in our recovery, in our healing, we want to address all of those areas. And so, you know, when and 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 there are a lot of causes for illness. So it's not just one thing. In fact, it's often even something from the past. So just let me like generational trauma is one example. Just here's just an interesting fact that ties into this is that women make up 80% of the autoimmune disease population. Isn't that interesting, right? And I believe that's in part when we think about um, the role of stress and trauma in the development of an autoimmune disease, women generationally have always been in most cultures oppressed, abused, um, disenfranchised, burned at the stake as witches, we we as women have been traumatized. And so even if you just look at it through the lens of the effects of stress, that in itself is an explanation for the high percentage of autoimmune warriors who are women. Interesting, right? Okay. But my point is that, quick fixes or looking for the quick fix is going to hold you back. All right. That's why we talk about a protocol. And that's why we devise, set up ways to help people to adopt this protocol as a lifestyle plan so that you can just make it your new life. It becomes your new norm, your new way of doing things, and you become part of the leader of this movement. All right. I think one of the biggest obstacles, though, for people in doing this is lack of support or lack of the right kind of support. And that's really why I began this movement of my own, because I really believe that with the right support, we are capable of of anything. All right. You are both you are worthy, you can be the hero of your own story. You can, you can, you can take control of the autoimmune disease rather than it controlling you. Instead of you becoming the autoimmune disease, you can become a person who happens to have, this or this or this. Um, and so, going back to mindset, the importance of mindset is so critical because, when you are thinking about like where might you want to go next after today's workshop, where might you want to go next? I want you to think about, you know, how valuable you are to this world. And that, for so long, probably you have worked for someone else. You've taken care of your family. Or you have fended for yourself. You have, um, you have given so much in your life, and worth, you are worth taking care of, and the world needs you. The world needs you to be healthy and whole. The world needs the next person to be healthy and whole, and the next person to be healthy and whole. We can't control the other person, but we can, if we make ourselves healthy and whole, then we can influence the next person to become healthy and whole. We do it by example, we do it by spirit, we do it by having a connection that causes a rise. And what's that saying, um if we pour if we pour water in the bathtub, everybody's boat floats higher. Okay? So um so taking care of yourself is worth it. Um And also, I mentioned before about, a mindset of victim versus hero. We we may feel like things happen to us, right? Like I remember saying to when I said to my doctor, why do I keep getting these things, And they're like, well, nothing you can do about it. It just happens. And I didn't like that. Well, that's because there was a part of there was a part of me that wasn't happy being a victim. I don't want to be a victim. I want to like I want to move. I want to do it. I don't want to be I don't want it to be in charge of me. I want to be the one, you know. Um and so you can rewrite your story to be the hero of your own story. Um and And then the other mindset shift that is really important for us to make sometimes is to say that, you know, every every setback, because remember I said a little while ago, it's not, oh, maybe it was during our break. I was just mentioning it to the people who are hanging here, that, it's not about perfection. This is about progress. And it's about moving towards healing. And once we start to move towards healing, then it's easier to keep going in that path. And the more healing we see, the more excited we get, and the faster we want to go, and that more energy we have, and we start to feel better, and then we want to feel more better, and we have more energy to feel better, and it builds, right? That's why I kind of like the image of pillar, because a pillar is going to be in the ground, it's going to be well rooted in the ground, it's going to be nice and strong, and it's going to build up, right? and it's going to hold, hold something, the top of a building edifice of some sort, um and um and so these pillars that we talk about for overcoming or living with autoimmune disease are things that are well grounded in science and research and experience of people, the stories that abound, and we build up on those, and they begin to be the things that hold up our and support our healthy lives with autoimmune disease. And so we don't have to be victim to it, right? We can be the heroes of our story. And together, with the right support, we can overcome, and we can start a movement, and be part of a movement that is healthy, not just for autoimmune survivors, but for everyone. All right. So we are kind of coming to the end of these things, but I want to uh, and just to mention that I do have a coaching program where I offer the support. When I was talking about the kind of support that can help you move this lifestyle plan that you started to fill it out, to refine it, to teach you more about all of this and how to make it, how to really make it match your life. And in my program, um, it's really an experience more than a program, because it gives you 16 weeks of wraparound support. It's a whole season plus, so that you are moving through and working through and working with this protocol for a whole season. And really making it your own, and having a chance to work through the challenges. And so you not only are you going to see results during the 16 weeks, but you're also going to be developing the skills and the techniques and the mindset to to continue to thrive beyond the experience itself. Um, and anyway, so just want to offer that to you as possibility as you're thinking about, how you will invest in yourself for your continued ability to thrive. And like I mentioned before, you can find lots of stories of people who have even thrown their autoimmune diseases into remission, whether it was lupus or it was RA or it was, MS or whatever, and they've thrown it into remission, by using these lifestyle techniques. Why not you, right? Why can't it be you? I've been symptom free of so many things, and not just related to autoimmune disease. Like I said, I had cancer, and I'm, here I am, 66 years old, and I've got energy, I have life, I could be a lot worse off, except that I'm not. And there's a reason for that. It wasn't by luck. It was by choice of lifestyle. And that's what I want for you too. But for next steps, the first thing I would love for you to do is if you would just type in the comments an aha moment. All right, something that something that you learned today, something that something that you are feeling impelled to do. All right, I will. Okay, that'd be awesome. Type that in the comments. Ooh, yeah. Uh, You love the idea of a menu rather than diet. Yeah, me too. Who likes to be put on a diet anyway? Not me. I don't want to be put on a diet. I want a menu. I want to make a menu of things that I love, right? And that's what you can do too. Do that. Make a menu of all the things that you love that are anti-inflammatory. Um, all right. What else? What else? What else? Aha moment. Yeah, the connection of stress. Yeah, women. Yeah, women being under stress. Yeah, explains a lot, right? Yeah, yeah. And again, no blame. No blame here, towards men. I mean, this is, we all none of us grows up in a vacuum, okay? All right. Oh yeah, the connection of childhood to trauma. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, right? So it helps us to understand ourselves a little bit better sometimes. All right. Thank you for sharing those. Thank you for sharing those. Yeah. Okay. So, as I had mentioned, the bonus for being here, I have just put a link in the comments, and if you click on that link, it will take you to a calendar. You can book a call with me, and do it now. Do it now while the link is still up. You can click on the link now, and it'll then you'll have the link, and you can go in and make your or you can do it right now and still be listening to the to what I'm saying. If you book your call now, then and this will be a free call, and we will go over the work that you have done today on your personalized anti-inflammatory lifestyle plan. And then we can go from there. We'll strategize how to really make the most of this plan. How does that sound? Take it to a new level. Who wants to thrive? Who's ready to thrive? Type thrive again in the chat. Want to see a whole bunch of thrives here. Who are my thrivers? So we're warriors and we're thrivers. There's a difference. There's survivors, there's victims, right? There are survivors, there are warriors. Each of these are useful lenses through which to look at ourselves, right? And beyond being a warrior, you can be a thriver. And and it's because we are multi-layered human beings, we're not just talking about thriving with autoimmune disease. We're talking about thriving as a whole human. And all of that comes into play when you work with a good coach. I've been coaching for 10 years. I have been a coach for over 10 years now. And so I've coached hundreds of people at this point. All right. And this is what happens is that, someone will come to me to work on one thing and they end up, things change in the rest of their lives too, because everything is connected. And so it's an adventure. And it makes it fun, it makes it rewarding, and and so I can't wait to be able to connect with those of you who are booking a call with me. All right. So we have to end up for now. Um, and I wish you all the best. I will be sending out the replay on this. I'm also gonna post it to my YouTube channel, so hopefully people will be able to find it later on. Okay. All right, everyone. All right. All right. Any questions? All right, good. All right. Bye for now, everyone.